If you're thinking about a pack motor, you're probably concerned about the two issues that have come up in the fishing community. Well, I've got a hack that fixes those that I'll share with you today. The way the pack motor comes, it has a strap that runs underneath the hull of your kayak. And that's going to interfere with your anchor trolley unless you mount this first and then reroute your trolley or rewrite this cable. So that's issue number one. Issue number two. Issue number two is that once that strap comes down, unless you have a rounded and then flat hull, it's going to create a gap like here between my keel and this edge. And that means the strap is going to run from here to here and potentially catch on oyster beds, submerged vegetation, rocks, or whatever. Well, I've got the solution. The solution to those two issues is to mount the motor on top and eliminate that strap that goes underneath. And I came up with a way to do that, but before I show you that, let's go out on the water and give my hack a test. And I'll tell you right now, I've got a little bit of a tweak I need to do to it to make it perfect. It's time for the field test. I'm out here on the Cape Fear River, and I chose this instead of going up to Greenfield Lake or where I usually fish inshore, because I think this is where I will experience the most compelling clash of currents. I've got an outgoing current from the river and I've got an incoming tide. And my thought on that is, if anything is gonna make these two pack motor thrusters pop up or get unadjusted, it's gonna be that clash of currents. So what I'm gonna do is a couple tests. I'm gonna run straight forward, straight back. I'll do the 360. And what I'm interested in is, do any of the motors come up out of the water and start thrashing around? So let's run straight out. I'll put the camera on the motor here on my left so you can see what's going on. And we launch. It's looking good. Both sides are running smooth. Let's reverse thrusters and see what happens. Well, it still worked, but the thrusters came up out of the water a little bit. So I've moved the thrusters farther down in the water column, and let's see what happens now. Heading backwards. That's pretty slick. Well, that worked just fine. So it looks like putting these things a little bit deeper is going to be the solution if you don't want to have the sputtering when you go back. Going forward, everything works just fine. Now, checking my strap to the back and to the front, I can see that I've got them just a little bit loose. And so I would bet that if I really tighten up this back strap, maybe using a figure 9 carabiner, that I'm not really going to have the problem anymore. Now that we've done forward and back, let's do the pivot turn and see what happens. Pivot turn, initiate now. No sputtering on either side when I go to the left. Well, maybe a little bit, but it still works. Let's go to the right. Not bad. Running the pack motor straight ahead, which is probably what you're going to do most often, there's absolutely no problem with the utility track mount. It's only when you go in reverse, and I think I've got that fixed with tightening up my two cables, that you end up getting a little bit of that cavitation as the motors come up. So I'm happy with this. I just checked the other side and I definitely have a loose cable issue. So I think that is the ultimate solution, is to make sure that the cord you run around to your rear is as tight as you can humanly make it. And quite frankly, now that I'm thinking of this, there's probably stretch in the cables that I use, and once that's out after this trip, well, I probably should be okay once I retighten them. One of the things I forgot to mention in my review is the Pacmotor does have a cruise control. It's this other little button right here. You can put it in cruise, troll, and have a great time and be lazy. I'm heading back to the launch now. Yeah, I'll get my button gear and I'll pedal as well to gain some additional speed. Got to get a workout. I'm 71. I don't want to be old and decrepit. I'm going to declare that this hack is a thumbs up for the Pacmotor. I won't have to worry about that strap being underneath my kayak, and I have full use of my anchor trolley without having to reroute any cables. There we go, a Pacmotor hack in the bag. The first part of the hack is to get some of these 1-inch cable clamps that have the rubber insulation, and then use that to clamp the motor to utility tracks on both sides of your kayak. This is not going to move, it's absolutely firm. The next issue is to stabilize the knuckle unit. Let me show you what I did when I was just out on the river. I took some strong dive cord and I drilled a hole and then tied that, and then I routed it underneath my hull. I'll show you that in a minute, but right now I also want to show you what I'm going to fix, because you can see that after being out in the water, this loosened up a little bit. So the cable stretched, and I've got a way to deal with that. But the other fix I want to do is drill a hole here and then run the cable across and then there. And I think that's going to push down more on this knuckle and keep it firmly against the kayak. So let me show you why this cable is not a problem with catching on anything. The cable runs right next to the kayak, then up underneath the kayak, and then up to tie on. In this case, I put 2 screws in my power pole holes, and that is holding it in place. I'm going to change this. That was a hack I just did the test on, and quite frankly, it works just fine, because most of the time you're going to be going forward and not back, and you're probably not going to be turning all that much. And again, the fix is just to lower the fin a little bit farther down into the water. But I like running with my motor at about right there, because it minimizes the chance of impacting shallow water or shallow obstructions. And in my initial test, I determined that I could go faster with it right here rather than at full perpendicular to this plane orientation. So let's get the fix done. I've got the tweak in place. Let me show you what I did. I drilled a hole on this side, and then on the cord I just tied a couple knots to keep it in there. Then it runs over the knuckle, comes out the hole over here, goes along the side of the kayak, and then comes up to a figure 9 carabiner. Now, why do I want the figure 9 carabiner? Well, I want to be able to take this on and off easily. So with the figure 9, I can just unwrap the cord, and then I can remove the entire motor. So that allows it to be a lot more flexible. Now, I used cord right here that has a pretty high strength, and I know it's going to stretch a little bit, and that's another reason why I wanted the figure 9 carabiner, because every time I use this, I can really crank down on it, put a lot of tension in this, and that's going to hold the knuckle in place. But now there's 2 other things you need to do. The first thing is you need to make sure that the included straps are all as tight as possible. So I pulled these down, and I like using these Velcro straps. I cut off a little piece of the strap, and that keeps these straps from flopping in the water. The other thing is that the original cord that goes underneath the kayak, you now run across the top, and like the other one, you keep it as tight as possible as well, because it's going to help to hold the knuckle up against the hull. And so now you can see I've got very little movement. Now the movement was mostly when it was going backwards. You can see there's still going to be a little bit, but not as bad as before. So I think this is going to work just fine, because I don't want it to get in the way of my anchor trolley, and I don't want to catch anything on the strap as it goes under the bottom. Completed Pacmotor hack. Now, I'm doing other stuff for the next 2 or 3 weeks, so I won't be able to get back out and see the difference on this probably until mid-May, but this is on there tight. It's going to work. Comments? Better way to do it? I think I'll solve the problem of mounting this on top without the strap.